everyone, welcome back to another episode of Spectator Sports. This is Sebastian Fonseca. We had an epic World Cup final that I'm going to be breaking down to start this episode, and then also break down Week 15's action in the NFL and some NBA sprinkled in there too. It's going to be a longer episode just because there's such a forefront with the FIFA World Cup coming to a conclusion. But like and subscribe to the page. It makes a massive difference in the YouTube algorithm, and I greatly appreciate it. Best final ever. I mean, I'm sorry if you don't get this sport or you still don't love this sport. I don't know how I can help you. I know America is still American football, basketball, even baseball ahead of soccer or football. But no, this is clearly the world's most beautiful game. And they showed up when the lights shine the brightest. I mean, the world was watching the best final ever. And so many storylines, so many legacies on the line. I mean, this spectacular match, best match I've ever seen in my life. Best final ever, possibly the best soccer match ever. Argentina came into this match making a slight change in their starting lineup. They decided to go with the veteran Angel Di Maria, and he definitely earns that license as he's had produced in major finals before for Argentina, and he's a big match player, so I was fine with that change into the lineup. France decided to bench Konate, a move I actually disagree with, but Rabiot was back after that illness that he sustained, missing the semifinal match. And then also they decided to bring back Upamecano in the starting lineup, so I was still pro Konate over Upamecano, but that's what Didier Deschamps decided to go with, so that's how it was. Angel Di Maria's start paid huge dividends for Argentina. I mean, he drew an early foul in the box, a soft foul nonetheless, but by the letter of the law, that is a penalty, and Messi converted for the early 1-0 lead. After that, Di Maria took it in himself to make it 2-0 going into halftime. France looked really dead. I mean, they barely could even possess the ball past Argentina's midfield. That's how dominant Argentina was playing. And then they also made some interesting moves, especially with the lineups, with Deschamps going with removing Giroud and then also Dembele, who committed that foul on Angel Di Maria. I agree with the Dembele move, but I definitely have to disagree with the Giroud move. He's been their second best goal scorer in this tournament. That's too hasty of a move, and he definitely was panicking. Scaloni had a phenomenal match. I mean, managing this roster from start to finish was pretty good. I mean, just coaching circles around Didier Deschamps as he made every tactical move to combat France. I have to give huge credit to him setting up Argentina for positions of success. In the second half, France continued to show signs that they were just lackluster, not into this match. Antoine Griezmann was also subbed out of the match, so it was really just down to Mbappe, so France was looking for that goal. Kolo Muani, who came on as a substitute for Giroud, was really good as well. I mean, probably the second best player playing for France in this World Cup final. Within the last 10 minutes of the match, we saw Kolo Muani draw a penalty in the box, and this ignited France finally, thanks to Mbappe's penalty, and then immediately turning a Messi turnover into a goal. I mean, this is a spectacular finish. This is off the volley with so much pace, and for Emi Martinez, I mean, this is just so frustrating. You got a glove on it, but just not enough, just too much pace, so much class in that strike, and that's was the difference that made Mbappe's strike go through the net for the equalizer. Some near chances, but not a lot of quality. Now, Messi did have a strike, but it was a great save by Lloris just before full time ended. And then in extra time, quiet first half, but in the second half of extra time, this is when finally, on a 3-on-1 break, Argentina broke through off a rebound attempt thanks to Messi, put his team ahead, and you think this is enough, this is the difference in this match, but again, France is just like that zombie that keeps waking up. And again, France had an opportunity from the spot thanks to Gonzalo Montiel's handball in the box. Mbappe converted the penalty, tying up the score, his third of this match. I mean, a World Cup final hat-trick, I mean, can this be not goat-ish behavior? I mean, Mbappe definitely has next. It's just so clear, and I was just astounded by his play. I mean, this has to go down as one of the best performances in a World Cup final, probably even in a championship game. I mean, just a hat-trick when your team needs it every time he delivered. So hats off to Mbappe. In the penalty kick shootout, both GOATs converted to set the tone early for each nation, but then misses by Conman and Chouameni really hurt France as Emi Martinez played the mind tricks and got in the head, especially with Kingsley Coman. And this set up the last kick for Gonzalo Montiel, the guy who committed the handball in the box, and he had his redemption arc completed as he sealed the deal for Argentina. Their third World Cup and also now Messi's first. I mean, just a phenomenal job. He showed such great leadership, had a great performance in this match, overshadowed by Mbappe's performance, of course, with the hat-trick, but I mean, player of the tournament with 7 goals, 3 assists, unmatched production, and now this is the storybook ending that we all wanted to see. This totally seals the GOAT debate in my opinion. I mean, Messi has every trophy that you need to qualify as the GOAT. If Mbappe were to get maybe a couple UCL trophies, I have to consider that in the future, but he's just not there yet. He's only 23. Plenty of time to ascend as the GOAT. And in this performance, I again have to emphasize it is truly one of the best performances by a single person to carry his team, his nation to the finish line almost. Congrats, it's a phenomenal match, probably the best I've ever seen in my life. And we're so blessed to see such a phenomenal match and brilliant play. And I'm just so happy with this World Cup. I don't have any complaints about the quality of play. We got an epic final, a great knockout stage, really nice group play as well. And I really hope that in 2026 we have another one like that here in the United States. Now moving on to the NFL action of Week 15, starting off with Thursday Night Football, we had the Seattle Seahawks hosting the San Francisco 49ers. And this game, the 49ers defense continues to be truly scary. I mean, they completely shut down Geno Smith and the Seattle offense. Most of the time it was just 2 field goals for 6 points. As they had a comfortable margin, Brock Purdy looked very solid operating the offense after a really good week of practice under Kyle Shanahan. Now he has some competency. Christian McCaffrey had a lot of touches, now taking the epicenter of the offense thanks to the injury to Deebo Samuel. But he'll be coming back, so I think the offense will be in good hands as Brock just has to captain the ship in terms of not mess anything up. And he's been relatively clean in terms of turnovers, and overall, I mean, this defense is truly tenacious. Nick Bosa is definitely the leading candidate to be Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, 15.5 sacks, another one on Thursday night, looking in the best shape I've seen him in a long time. And now shaking off that injury that he suffered earlier on in the season, I think he's going to be the forefront of this truly tenacious defense. And shout out to Jarius Ward. I mean, he completely shut down DK Metcalf on the outside. Really good cornerback, should be getting a lot more praise than what he's used to be getting. For Seattle, I think this means that their season's over at this point. They just have a couple tough matchups with the Jets and also the Kansas City Chiefs. Both teams very much alive in their AFC playoff races, so they have something to play for. Seattle has had a nice season. It's a great story, but I think their postseason hopes will be ending quite soon. Kicking off Saturday's action with the triple header, we had the Colts taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Now, this is truly a tale of two halves. I mean, the Colts had all the advantages across the board. They had a block punt. They were running the ball effectively, even without Jonathan Taylor. Matt Ryan looked very solid, and they were up 33-0. I mean, they had turnovers as well. Kirk Cousins, really impressive stuff, and it seemed like Jeff Saturday was on his way to a great victory against a really good quality opponent. But in the second half, this is when a total collapse unfolded for the Indianapolis Colts, and Kirk Cousins and the offense kind of woke up thanks to KJ Osborne. I mean, he was phenomenal, and that kind of got Justin Jefferson going too. They slowly chipped away at it, and then the Vikings were able to force overtime and then win the game in overtime thanks to a last-second field goal. This means that they clinched the NFC North, and this is really good for them. I mean, they've been shaky, had some really weird wins. I mean, they all have been within one possession. Really impressed by this comeback. I mean, this is the largest comeback in NFL history, but I still can't trust them as a true contender as I've been out of them for a long time. This being down 33-0 at halftime is a big red flag. For the Colts, I think this loss is a big red flag for Jeff Saturday's hopes to being the future head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. He's a solid NFL analyst on ESPN, don't get me wrong, but as a coach, there's just so many things that go into it. He's given it a try and hasn't been successful. You could say the roster isn't that great. It just seems to be missing something, and the Colts could just be starting anew. For Matt Ryan, he has the dubious honor of having the biggest blown lead in a Super Bowl with 28-3, as we all know, and now this loss to the Vikings, losing a 33-point lead, the biggest comeback in NFL history. I just think he's washed at this point. He's better off retiring and being on the sidelines. He's had a nice career, but definitely well past his playing days. On the primetime matchup for Saturday, we had two AFC East rivals with the Buffalo Bills hosting the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins were definitely coming into this game as big underdogs, as the conditions for this really favored the Bills. I mean, there was projected to be snow. It was going to be very, very cold, and we all know Miami is a South Florida team. I mean, the difference in temperature was about 50, 60 degrees at the time kickoff happened. We didn't get the snow until late in the fourth quarter, and that kind of helped out the Miami Dolphins. They couldn't punch it in early, but they still were able to hang around and keep the Bills at bay. But in the second half, this is when Tua really got going and had a touchdown pass to Jalen Waddle, and then another one to Tyreek Hill, his two standout receivers on the outside. And Tyreek looked pretty good despite that ankle injury that he's been dealing with in recent weeks. Overall, I mean, Raheem Mostert had a really great game. Couldn't punch it in, but had a lot of nice gains on the ground despite the absence of Jeff Wilson, their second running back. I think Tua has been getting a lot of heat, and rightfully so, with that Chargers game. I mean, he was poultry with 10 out of 28. A lot better game, but this really wasn't on him. He was let down by his receivers, not named Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, as there were some drops on some key third downs, especially in the red zone, the drop touchdown pass. Tua had a good game, and this isn't on him, and he played well despite the frigid condition. In the fourth quarter, Josh Allen had a really nice game. I mean, utilizing his legs is a big part of his success. He had a huge gain on the ground to tie the game with a rushing touchdown and then a 2-point conversion, and then set up the game-winning field goal as time expired. And it was really interesting. As snow was coming down, we could see that it was collecting, and Orchard Park is a artificial turf field, so we saw different cleaning techniques. There was the dusting, there was the hand shoveling, just to clear a path for Tyler Bass to kick the game-winning field goal. We've seen teams also order the trucks to move snow and clear that out as well, just for the kicker to have a good grip. Just something amusing. I thought that was really, really funny. But nonetheless, the Bills now are basically a win away from clinching the AFC East, and they're still continuing pace to be the top seed. But they have a couple big games. They have the Patriots coming up, and also a big matchup on Monday Night Football in a couple weeks with the Cincinnati Bengals. So that is a dark horse, especially in the AFC. They need to find a way to win that if they want to keep pace with the Kansas City Chiefs, as they also won in Week 15. The Detroit Lions took on the New York Jets, and now this is their 6th win in 7 games, and now they returned to 500 for the first time since opening day, and really impressed by their performance. I mean, they were able to shake off a deficit, and they played really, really well. I mean, defensively, they got some key stops when needed. Special teams had a punt return touchdown, and Jared Goff continues to play pretty solid despite this reputation that he is not the best of quarterbacks. He's a solid quarterback, like I said in my last episode. And overall, I mean, Dan Campbell is really building a culture here in Detroit now. They may or may not make the postseason, but they'd be a hell of a team that you don't want to play in the postseason if you're one of those top seeds. They would be a very dangerous team in this NFC North, as I think the window for Minnesota will be closing, and also we could definitely say that the Green Bay's window has either closed for this season, probably for the future. Chicago's also rebuilding, and they kind of have a step up on them. There's an interesting question, though. They have the Los Angeles Rams pick, and that's slated to be right now as a top 5 pick. And the way Jared Goff is playing is great, but still, I would definitely look to try and get one of these quarterbacks, because they have a core, they have a solid defense with pass rushers, they have a back end, and then they have receivers like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Also Jameson Williams in the fold. So good running backs, pretty good offensive line. They just need a quarterback. Goff, like I said, is a solid quarterback, but I don't think, just like how the Rams didn't think that he's the guy to take them to the next step, he can be the bridge quarterback, teach this new QB the ropes of the NFL, and then take over from there. I think CJ Stroud would be a great prospect. Will Levis is another prospect, but I mean, unless they were to get the top pick, I mean, who could be Bryce Young? I think that's the best way to go about it. They can get a really good, talented quarterback on the cheap, have him learn under Jared Goff for a year or two, and then take the reins from there. And then Detroit really has something. But we'll see what happens. I mean, they should be focused on their postseason run, but that's just something I wanted to bring up. Now, in this matchup with the Dallas Cowboys and the Jacksonville Jaguars, a lot of people had the Dallas Cowboys on upset alert thanks to that scare that they had against the Houston Texans last week. And they really didn't seem like they needed it. I mean, they raced out to a 27-10 lead in the third quarter, but then turnovers and miscues brought the Jags back into the game. And big shout out to Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he's been playing great in the last 6 weeks. I mean, he's had 16 touchdown passes in that span, resulting in a bevy of wins. And this is definitely his best stretch as an NFL pro. Really high on him now after having a tumultuous first season in the NFL thanks to Urban Meyer. I mean, he was a terrible coach, probably pretty bad guy too overall with the suspect behavior, but now with Doug Peterson having a great time with him, teaching him how to be an NFL quarterback has been really good for his development. Travis Etienne is a great piece out of the backfield. And overall, I mean, this Jaguars team now controls their own destiny as they were able to rally back thanks to a pick six in overtime of Dak Prescott. Now, Dak has continued to throw some interceptions. The one that ended the game was a tip ball, so I can't totally blame Dak on that. But that first one that he had to kind of bring the Jags in striking range was definitely on him. It was an overthrown ball that was intercepted by the DB and made a good play on it. So Dak is still not being really effective, and I think he's the guy that's really holding this team back. But as a whole, I mean, this team is not all together as many people want to put them out to be. I know on paper, even myself, thinking that they're a division rival of the Philadelphia Eagles, I think they would be a threat. They have a lot of talent, and they could wake up for the right opponent, as they'll be playing the Eagles on Christmas Eve, and that would be a really good matchup between probably the two of the best teams in the conference, especially in the division at least. Nonetheless, this team has been all over the place this season. I mean, their defense allowing 34 points is not a really good output for them. They've been leaky. They kind of pick and choose their times when they want to be truly competitive. So we'll see what happens against Philly. I think that'll be a true test to see how elite this team may or may not be. But regardless, beating a team, if the Eagles were to play them for a third time in the postseason, would be really difficult. But let's just focus on Christmas Eve next week for that nice matchup. Speaking of the Eagles, they took on the Chicago Bears, and they were playing in really frigid conditions in Chicago. It was about 17 degrees temperature-wise, but with wind chill, it was probably like 2 degrees or so, easily single digits. Wind affected this game, so a lot of the throws were errant, as Hurts had a couple bad passes, and also there were some missed kicks as well. Nonetheless, though, there was a really bad interception that Hurts threw, and that's been a rare mistake that we see now. He has 5 interceptions on the years. His stats definitely took a dip this week in terms of the efficiency from a passing standpoint, but he had 3 rushing touchdowns. All-round game in terms of over 350 total yards combined between the air yards and the ground yards, so that's impressive. Don't like the turnovers, of course, but overall, I mean, the Eagles didn't have their best game, and they did succumb to some really great plays by Justin Fields. He's definitely the guy for Chicago. It's just a one-man wrecking crew right now. I mean, there's just not good O-line play. There's not a good defense. Mediocre receivers at the best. And I mean, David Montgomery has been decent, but not a great running back. They have some adjustments to make in the offseason, but they definitely have a good quarterback, so that's a great start for them. The Eagles had great outputs from their receivers. I mean, Devontae Smith had another 100-yard game, and then A.J. Brown went off for 181, a career high in terms of receiving yards. I was a little disappointed in the play calling. I mean, Miles Sanders didn't get a lot of touches until the second quarter, and he had a good game against the Giants, so that's just really strange. So I hope that they establish him next week against the Dallas Cowboys. Also, big shout out to the Eagles pass rush. I mean, they are now leading the league in sacks. 3 pass rushers had 2 sacks on the day for a total of 6, with Javon Hargrave, Josh Sweat, and Hassan Reddick. Easily could say that 2 of the 3 could be Pro Bowlers, maybe all 3. This pass rush has totally changed things in Philadelphia, and it's made life a lot easier for defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon. Mainly Hassan Reddick. I mean, he's consistently been an elite pass rusher for the last 3 years, but this is definitely his best season yet, so really happy with his production. Now, there was a wild ending in the Patriots-Raiders game. As the Raiders were down 7, they were able to rally using a couple key 4th down conversions from Derek Carr to his receivers. Really good throw to force the tie situation, probably heading into overtime, but Belichick directed his offense to at least go for the win and stave off OT, and this was when chaos happened. On the last play, we had Stevenson running up the middle, and then there was some laterals going on. Then Jacoby Myers decided to throw the ball across the field, probably to Mac Jones. I couldn't really tell. He was the closest Patriot in the play. This lateral was intercepted. That goes down as a fumble recovery by Chandler Jones, former Patriot. And he had probably the meanest stiff arm of Mac Jones, just shoving him into the ground. Pretty disrespectful, but very comical nonetheless. And he took it back to the house. The Raiders win on a walk-off fumble recovery. Really big gaffe, really bad execution, really undisciplined for a Bill Belichick team. And that's a huge hit on this Patriots team in terms of their playoff hopes. This might be it for them. I mean, they do have 3 games left, but one of them comes against the division-leading Bills with something to play for in terms of home field advantage. So they're not going to get a break from that. So we'll see what happens, but really wild game. I mean, this is another case where the NFL continues to do something new and surprise me on any given Sunday. The Titans and Chargers clashed in SoFi Stadium, and the Chargers were able to pull off a 17-14 victory. Now, Justin Herbert didn't have the best of games statistically, but overall he was able to get the job done in the clutch and set up a game-winning field goal thanks to Cameron Dicker. Overall, I mean, this Chargers team is really starting to put things together. I think that with these receivers being healthy like Mike Williams, Keenan Allen that we saw last week against the Miami Dolphins has been great. The defense is surely getting shored up. I mean, Khalil Mack is still one of the elite pass rushers in the league. Derwin James will be back. Joey Bosa will be back at some point. This team, if they can get into the dance, they'd be very dangerous. We know that Justin Herbert has been itching to make the postseason. He's been coming close, really being an elite thrower of the football. But now that he has some help and maybe some competency from his head coaching staff, I think this is going to be a good few weeks for the Chargers, as they're playing teams that they are definitely going to be favored to win against in the closing marks of the season. For the Titans now, they're continuing to let this division slip through their fingers as they have a matchup against the Dallas Cowboys coming up too. With the Jaguars right on their heels, and with the Jaguars already having a tiebreaker situation, this could be going to the last day of the regular season in week 18, and these two teams could be battling for who goes to the playoffs and representing the AFC South. Overall, I think this is just the Titans' window has been closing as they lost in that divisional round against the Cincinnati Bengals. Regardless, they need to figure out some ways to change things up, as they still have a good chance to make the postseason. And speaking of the Bengals, they were taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this is again a classic example of the 2022 Bucs just having a pretty bad second half. I mean, overall, they've been a messy team. Honestly, great start. I mean, they started off 17-0, and then the wheels fell off in the second half. The Bengals offense woke up and exploded. I mean, Joe Burrow utilized all 3 of his major receivers in terms of Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, each catching receiving touchdowns. Really, really impressed with how he's been able to respond in the second half of the year. And this team now finally has the lead in the AFC North. With them having a chance to host the postseason game in the wild card round, they probably have a good matchup as long as they don't play like the LA Chargers. It's going to be a good season for them, and I think they can make a deep run just because they're just such a explosive team offensively. Defensively also, they know how to get stops. They forced 4 turnovers of Tom Brady. There was a mixture between interceptions and fumbles, not fluky at all. So this Bengals team is definitely going to be a dark horse. If I'm Kansas City or Buffalo, I would like to avoid them until the very last round possible before the Super Bowl. And then finally on Sunday Night Football, we had the Giants taking on the Washington Commanders, and in the first matchup there was a tie. Then the Giants came off a huge loss to the Philadelphia Eagles last week, so I really thought this was advantage Commanders. I mean, a tie and then having 2 weeks to prepare for the same opponent, using that bye week to get healthier, having it in your home field is a great advantage. But honestly, the Giants came out very, very hungry. I mean, offensively, Saquon looked great. This is probably his best game in a few weeks. He looked healthier compared to last week against the Eagles. He had a really nasty juke move, and that's that agility, that lateral quickness that we really like to see out of Saquon. So happy to see that back. And then overall, the offense was working really well. They controlled the clock and kept the more talented offense of the Commanders on the sidelines. Also, big shout out to Kayvon Thibodeau. The number 5 overall pick for the Giants has been a great defensive end. He literally wrecked the first half of the game. He had a strip sack that led into a scoop and score touchdown. And then he finished the game with 12 tackles, including 3 tackles for loss. Just really all over the field. I saw him track down Terry McLaurin, who's a very fast receiver, tackling after a screenplay. So dude has speed too, and seems like the Giants really have a good pass rusher in the years to come. Overall, this is a good victory for the Giants. That stops their 4-game winless streak, so really impressed by that. The Commanders now have to play the San Francisco 49ers, and the Niners still have something to play for in terms of seeding. So they definitely are looking to maybe score an upset victory, but really hurts the Commanders' chances of making the postseason. For my players of the week, I'm going to be naming Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne, as those were the 2 receivers that really spurred on the Vikings' comeback attempt. And then for my defensive player of the week, I'm going to name Kayvon Thibodeau. I just talked about how he had 12 tackles, 3 for loss, a scoop and score, strip sack, pretty much did everything to wreck this game for Washington. So easily my defensive player of the week. And then to sprinkle in some NBA action, a lot of injuries have been happening now. We unfortunately have an injury to Anthony Davis. He suffered a foot injury, and that means he's going to be missing a few weeks. And again, I was high on him after that 55-point game against Washington. So now he's going to be missing some time, right on cue with this whole AD fragility kind of deal that we've been seeing out of his career. It's interrupting a really dominant run from him, but we'll see what the Lakers can do to respond. LeBron has been playing great, and they just scored a victory against the Washington Wizards. They're still hanging around that play-in tournament spot, but they're going to have to really find a way to make up for Anthony Davis's production. Now, another huge injury in our weekly Warriors watch has actually been to Steph Curry, as he suffered a left shoulder subluxation, and that basically means that it's somewhat similar to a dislocation of the shoulder, or it's just not totally stable. He's going to be out for a few weeks, and this is coming at a pretty bad time. They're going to be playing the Memphis Grizzlies on Christmas Day. A lot of good matchups coming up, but they were able to score a victory against the Toronto Raptors on the road, thanks to Jordan Poole having a 43-point game, his career high. Really impressed by him. So he's going to be stepping into the leading scorer type of role, creating offense, as he's probably going to be the point guard of the team moving forward. Draymond's been still really solid in terms of scoring and being efficient with the ball. Clay had another good game against Toronto, and look for Wiggins to get more reps too, as he needs to be more a focal point on offense. Now, there's been a few big win streaks going on in the NBA. There's a 6-game win streak by the Orlando Magic, including 2 wins against the Raptors, and then 2 wins against the Boston Celtics, who were leading the Eastern Conference, but now with these couple of losses, now Milwaukee has moved up to the top spot in the East. Regardless, that's still really impressive by the Orlando Magic. I mean, Paolo Banchero has been having a stellar season, probably the runaway pick to be the Rookie of the Year, and Orlando really knocked that pick out of the park. Also, the Brooklyn Nets have been looking really, really good. I saw Kyrie Irving have an amazing game against Toronto, including a buzzer beater this week. And then on Sunday, we saw Kevin Durant come up with a 43-point game. I got to see them play in DC last Monday, and both Kyrie and KD looked really good against the Wizards, and they've been on a 6-game win streak, easily being like a top 4, top 5 team in the Eastern Conference. Big surprise has been this turnaround with the New York Knicks. They've won 7 in a row. They're now 6th in the Eastern Conference. And when guys like Julius Randle are really on it, this really helps out the Knicks. And also Jalen Brunson, their off-season acquisition, has been really good for them too. Really surprised by that. I didn't think that the Knicks would be a true playoff team. Now it's only December, but really impressed by their play. And in a really congested Eastern Conference, that's definitely the better of the two. Really surprised by their play. Overall, the league has been really balanced. I don't think there's a true runaway anymore, thanks to this little slide by the Boston Celtics, as the Bucks are now the top seed in the Eastern Conference. And then we've seen some shuffling out west, with now the Grizzlies are taking over as the top seed, with the Pelicans dropping back to 2 thanks to a couple losses to Utah this week, and then a loss to the Phoenix Suns. And that was a game that Devin Booker went off for 58 points. Phenomenal game by his part. The Suns were a team that was slipping, but they got some good wins recently, so happy for them. And again, like I said, it's a lot of parity in this NBA, not a true front runner, but excited to see what the NBA Christmas Day games will bring. And for an upcoming episode, there's going to be a surprise guest coming on for a review of the quarter mark of the NBA season. And that's it for this episode of Spectator Sports. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take a look at our Instagram and TikTok pages. We have a lot of content with the FIFA World Cup wrapping up there, including clips from today's recap on those pages as well. And always like and subscribe to the page. It makes a massive difference in that YouTube algorithm, and I greatly appreciate it. I'm gonna be changing a little bit of things moving forward with production with the holidays coming around, so there'll be an episode coming out next week recapping the NFL and the Christmas Day games, but be coming at a slightly different time, as I want to take a step back with taxing myself with the FIFA World Cup coverage. It's been great, but definitely need a little bit of break to spend some time with family. But until next time, I'll see you then, and happy holidays to everyone.